Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining me, whether you're joining me live or on the replay, for a session on compassionate communication to heal relationships. But first, I want to invite you to take a breath, take a collective breath for whatever's going on in your life right now, what's ever going on in the world right now, in your relationships, in your workplace, with your family. I'm sure that there's a lot of communication that has been challenging. And whether it's political, emotional, financial, familial, what's ever happening, you're going to have a chance in the next 20 minutes and then beyond, if you want, to learn how compassionate communication can begin to heal every relationship you have in your life, starting with the one you have with yourself. So take a breath with me here. And whether you're here because you've got your own relationship challenges or you're a professional who works with individuals or couples or families in conflict, I want to give you the benefit of my 35 years of experience. My name is Linda Kroll. I've studied with Dick Schwartz as an internal family systems therapist for over 35 years. I've studied with David G., Claire Diab, and Deepak Chopra at the Chopra Center to become a spiritual teacher in meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And I've studied with Sark and many other mentors to access the higher self in each of us. And I'm going to explain what that is. So the way I offer compassionate communication to my clients, and I see individuals and couples and families, I'm also a mediator and an attorney. So I kind of bridge the gap between healing conflict in all its realms. So if you have a pencil or just want to listen, I'll tell you the 4 steps to compassionately communicate. The first is be your best self. Second, let go of limiting beliefs and judgments. Third, unburden pain from the past. And 4, relate from your heart. So instead of this being an intellectual experience today, which I hope will have some value for you in terms of the learning, I'd like it to be an experiential process. I'd like our time together to feel like a sanctuary, to feel like a haven, to feel like an oasis in the middle of the cacophony of our lives right now. So if you would, let's consider that many people, yourself, your clients, are probably engaged in some form of conflict with someone, and they've had some dysfunctional patterns of relating. Maybe they've gotten angry, walled, judgmental, they've yelled, they've withheld, they've threatened divorce, they've been reactive. A lot of different ways to judge and blame and withhold your heart because you've been hurt. So what I'm going to show you today is what I do in every first session with all of my clients over the last 35 years. So if an individual comes in with any issue, whether it's relationship or their own personal issue, a couple comes in wanting marital counseling. Some people come in, one wants to stay in the marriage, another wants to get divorced, and some people come in to get divorced. But I've created a process that I've trained other therapists in, and I want to offer you now, on how in the first session to teach people how to compassionately communicate. And I'm going to do that with you right now. So let's take a breath. And if you would, you be the client and think about someone in your life with whom you're having conflict. Think about what they do, what you do in response, what they say, what you say, how you feel, how they feel. And just notice as you start to think of what he did, what she did, what they always do, what they never do, your body gets tense, right? And you start to either put walls up around your heart, or you look at them through the filters of judgment. They always do this, they never do that. And when I talk about compassionate communication, it starts, as I always say, love is the answer, but it starts with loving yourself. So first, it's acknowledging where in your body, mind, energy field are you holding any thoughts, feelings, beliefs that are causing you stress? And how do you release those? And we're going to talk about that. So let's think about that person with whom you're having conflict. And if you want, take a few notes. What do they do? What do you do? What do you think? And then I ask all my clients the magic wand question. If you could resolve the conflict, what's the outcome you'd like to see? peace, harmony, agreement, more chores done, more finances shared, a decision about a divorce, how to deal with whatever's going on in the world right now from two disparate perspectives. When you think about that, what happens to your body? It constricts, right? And if you had a magic wand and could feel that there was going to be some peace, understanding, what would that feel like? What would it look like? And then I ask, what's in the way? Is it what they're doing? Is it what you're thinking? What's in the way of creating better communication? And a lot of time it's habit. So Wayne Dyer says, when we change the way we look at something, what we look at changes. And most of us are looking through the eyes of our ego, the way we think life should be, our expectations, our judgments, our disappointments. And someone once said, not me, that expectations are premeditated resentments. I love that because it's true. If you have an expectation and your hopes are dashed, it leads to a resentment. So I often try to say that I try to answer the call of what my destiny should be, but I'm never sure who's calling, my ego or my soul. And when we come from what our egos think we should be doing, it leads to conflict, it leads to friction. When we learn to have a more spiritual perspective, a higher self perspective, a higher consciousness level of relating, the problems get resolved because you're not involved in the fight, flight, freeze habits that you've been practicing so long. So back to the example of the person you came in with, the idea of that person you're having conflict with, and notice that your body tenses. And then I ask all my clients, what is your word for spiritual? And it's not about religion. It's not about whether you go and pray. It's about we're body, mind, and spirit. So what is that for you? Is it higher power, true self, nature, universe, God? And then I'm inviting you to consider that when I'm talking about being in self, connecting to your best self, that first step, that's that energy inside of you that's connected to the oneness, to the calm. In internal family systems, we talk about the 8 qualities of self: calm, clear, compassionate, connected, courageous, curious, confident, creative. I think I got them all. And I often add gratitude, because when we're in gratitude, we've got more self-energy. But I'm talking about that experience of when you can show up and be a witness to what is going on rather than judging it. And the ways you connect to your best self: you meditate, you journal, you go for walks. I write a lot. But there's ways to direct access that peace inside of you. And when you do that, even if you meditate 2 minutes at a time, what you're doing is you're stopping the cacophony of your thinking mind that's telling you this should happen and this should happen and you should feel this way. You just reboot. You just tap into that spiritual center inside of you. So helping yourself and helping your clients connect to your best self and understanding what that means. And I'm going to do a meditation with you at the end of this session and show you how to receive it so you have it for yourself on what being, quote, in self feels like. So the first step is connect to your best self. The second step in how to compassionately communicate is to let go of limiting beliefs. Most of us don't want to do that. We grew up with what we believe. We know how things should be. We have our expectations. We have our standards. We have our values. Deep breath. But sometimes imposing those on others creates conflict. So when you look at your limiting beliefs, you look at your family of origin. And when I'm doing an initial interview with someone, and if I were doing it with you, I'd ask you to describe your family of origin. What was your mother like? What was your father like? How many siblings do you have? Where were you in the birth order? Are there any family secrets? Was there any drinking or adultery or anything that, may have caused you to grow up a certain way? And I just ask that briefly because I'm trying to get a general impression of how you grew up and what you were taught. And even in perfect families, sometimes we take on the message that we have to be perfect all the time, which is not a very healthy way to live because we can't be perfect. It puts a lot of stress on it. If you grew up in an alcoholic family, you possibly grew up being codependent about how you think you should relate to people. So I'm listening from a perspective, and I'm asking you to look at your family history so you have more compassion for yourself. And then I would invite you to look at the family history of the person with whom you're having conflict. How did he or she grow up? What was their mother, father like? Where were they in the birth order? Were they the oldest, who was all responsible for everyone? Were they the youngest, who was forgotten, or somewhere in the middle? Were their parents nurturing? And if not, did they grow up not knowing how to be compassionate because nobody was ever compassionate to them? So if you allow yourself to look at that other person from the perspective of how they were brought up and what they choose to believe, you can then make a choice. Because an event happens A, you put a thought on it, your belief on it B, which leads to a feeling C. But if you change your thought, you change your feeling. Byron Katie does a lot of great work with this with her work. She has you put down a thought, which is usually a limiting belief. And then she has you ask 4 questions. Is it true? Is it always true? How do you feel when you think that thought? How would you feel if you let that thought go? And then she invites you to think a different thought. So if you're telling yourself a limiting belief about your partner or your parent or your child or a coworker, and you're just playing it over and over in your mind, is it true? Probably think it is. Is it 100% true? Maybe not. How do you feel when you think that thought? Mad, hurt, angry, resentful? How would you feel if you let that thought go? Try letting it go. Try thinking something different, because that will change how you feel. So the first step is to connect to your best self. Second step is to let go of your limiting beliefs, or at least be aware of what they are. Because as I tell all of my clients, we all have a healthy self, capital S self. This is the blurb I give everyone that comes to my office. It's 2 minutes. You ready? I believe we all have a healthy self, capital S self. And when we're in self, we are calm, clear, and compassionate. You know those moments? They're usually just moments, because we're not, quote, in self very much. We're in parts. In internal family system, we talk about 3 kinds of parts. Parts that we exile and push aside, parts that we manage with and show the world, and parts that we get extreme with to kind of numb us. So for instance, if you grew up in an alcoholic home where your feelings didn't matter and you had to be peaceful and keep the peace, you may have pushed aside your feelings of sad, hurt, scared. You may have even pushed aside your anger because it wasn't safe to be angry. Your home wasn't safe. I grew up with a manic depressive father who yelled a lot. He was wonderful. He was humorous. He was beloved, but he was manic depressive. So there was the emotional instability that made me recoil when I heard his anger, and I pushed mine aside. And then I learned how to be codependent. I learned how to be nice, pleasing, caretaking. I learned how to put my needs further down. And I learned how to put on what I call a pseudo self, where I looked like I was in self, but I was really sad, hurt, and scared, especially when I grew up, married my college sweetheart, and our marriage started to dissolve. And I was looking at divorce. And I was still trying to do it from my pseudo self. I was still trying to manage with kindness and compassion and turning the other cheek. And I wasn't in touch with my anger, and I didn't set appropriate boundaries. And maybe I got extreme by eating too much or shutting down or watching too much TV or working too hard. Other people get depressed, have panic attacks, go shopping. There's a lot of ways to get extreme. But when we're in self, we thank our parts for trying to protect us. And they learned how to protect us from our family of origin. And once we understand that and help our clients understand that, they can look at their situation from a different perspective. Step 1, compassionate communication, connect to your best self. Step 2, let go of your limiting beliefs and judgments. And if you can't let go, look at why you're not willing to let go, which is another subject. Step 3, unburden pain from the past. And that gets us into our inner child work, because often what's bothering us in a conflict when we're communicating is subconsciously it's reminding us of a time in our past where we didn't get our needs met, where we felt hurt. And going back to that time and healing that in a way that brings more compassion to yourself. Remember, it starts with yourself. Allows you then to heal, not carry the burdens of those experiences, and to show up with more compassion for yourself and then for the other person. So once you've learned how to access your best self, connect to your best self, let go of your limiting beliefs and judgments, unburden pain from the past, you can then relate from your heart. And that's the miracle of compassionate communication. We're out of our ego. We're not judging. We're not reacting. We're not putting up walls and filters and acting out. We are truly coming from a peaceful place of compassion. And the Serenity Prayer helps from AA and Al-Anon. It gives us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I'm going to tell you about my spiritual graft for a minute. And what this is, in my mind, one time I woke up one morning and realized that about most of our problems were because our egos are wounded. Our egos, our judgments, our beliefs. And instead of learning how to accept it spiritually, we keep fighting. And that leads to dysfunctional communication. So here's my spiritual graft, like a skin graft. When you have a wound and you put a skin graft on, here's my spiritual graft, G-R-A-F-T. G is for gratitude. Be grateful for what is. Even if you're looking at a divorce, be grateful that you've had a relationship, that you have children if you have them, that you have some assets. Be grateful right now that no matter what's happening in the world, there's a lot of good people who want good things. Be grateful for what is. And then R-A is radical acceptance. It doesn't mean you don't try to make it better. It just means you don't rail against the wind and get yourself in an uproar and stress out about all the things that could happen. You radically accept this is what is now. And then you begin to make changes from there. So gratitude, radical acceptance. The F is forgiveness. Forgive yourself and then forgive everybody else. We're all doing the best we can. We're all on a journey to become our most evolved selves. And the most we can do is bring light and compassion to all of our parts, to other people's parts, to parts all over the world. And forgiveness is often difficult. I work with a lot of people that have come in and been in relationships for a long time, whether it's addiction or it might be abuse, verbal abuse. And they are mad at themselves for staying so long. Forgive yourself. You did the best you knew how to do. And you're going to learn how to do better. And if you put a spiritual graft on, you'll be grateful for what is, radically accept it, knowing you can make some changes, forgive yourself and hopefully eventually others, and then trust the process. Trust God, trust in other people, trust in the higher self in the universe, and trust your therapist. Trust that with gratitude, radical acceptance, forgiveness, and trust, we can quell our ego's rages and begin to communicate with compassion. So let's review. Excuse me. I want to give you the benefit of learning more. I'm doing a course on compassionate communication. It starts soon, and I'd love for you to join me. You can go to lindakroll.com/CC course, because what we're going to do is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you how to connect to your best self, how to let go of your limiting beliefs and judgments, how to let go of the pain and unburden the pain from your past and relate from your heart, and then truly create the relationships you desire and deserve. And in a minute, I'm going to do the meditation that I was telling you. But I also want to give you the benefit of getting my book, because I wrote the book Compassionate Mediation, How to Add Passion to Your Marriage or Compassion to Your Divorce. And in the first chapter, it talks about self in parts. It talks about how to communicate from your higher self. And as long as you're here, I want to give you a little visual with my dolls, because I don't always do this, but as long as you're here, let me show you. We each have an inner child, right? And oftentimes, some people try to look cool, don't want to talk about their exiled feelings of hurt, sadness, and pain. And some of us try to be codependent. This was my codependent doll. I bought her. She looked like this when I bought her. She was exhausted. But that's when you try to take care of everybody else's needs and you don't take care of your own. And then when you don't get your needs met, people show up in my office like this. They are so mad. And this is where the communication breaks down, whether for yourself or your clients. These are the extreme parts that come in. So we thank our parts. We thank the parts that are trying to protect us. We thank the parts that are trying to manage the way we were taught to manage growing up, where it's not okay to cry or you have to take care of everybody else. All those limiting beliefs we have to let go of. And then we're in touch with the feelings that we've exiled. So we can speak for our sadness, our hurt, our fear, our pain, and begin to get our needs met compassionately. That's what I want for you. So if you want to join me in the course, it's lindakroll.com/CCC. If you want to get the chapter of the book, lindakrollbook.com. And if you want to learn how to do this process, because I train other professionals in my process of compassionate communication and compassionate mediation coaching, and I give continuing education credits approved by the National Board of Certified Counselors and the International Coach Federation. So if you want to learn more and find time for a brief chat with me to see how that would help, go to Roadmap. So I want to give you and I want to show you how to get it. If you go to lindakroll.com/CCC, you'll get my care kit, because this is my compassionate communication care kit. This is a way to find 15 minutes of peace inside this chaotic world. And what I want to do for those of you that are here is give you the benefit of the meditation that I give everyone that comes in my office. So let's go back to the start. You came in, your clients come in, they're stressed, they're hurt, they're angry, they're sad, they're scared, they're overwhelmed. They've had it up to here. They just want to tell you their story. So when someone wants to tell me their story, I listen for about 5 or 10 minutes compassionately. And then I offer them another way to look at things. Because I tell them, you could talk to me about your story for the whole session for the next 45 minutes. And then you're going to leave and you're going to feel marginally better. But you won't see it from a different perspective. And if you'd like me to, I'd like to offer you a different perspective. And that perspective is how to come from your higher self, how to have compassion for yourself, how to have compassion. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the great spiritual teacher, has said, to resolve conflict, to reconcile conflicting parties, we must have the ability to understand the suffering of both sides. If we take sides, it's impossible to do the world of reconciliation. And humans want to take sides. That is why the situation gets worse and worse. Are there people who are still available to both sides? They need not do much. They need only do one thing. Go to one side and tell all about the suffering endured by the other side. And go to the other side and tell about the suffering endured by this side. This is our chance for peace. That can change the situation. And that's what we do with compassionate mediation. That's what we do with compassionate communication. So I'd love to help you learn how to give these skills to your clients, and more importantly, how to use them yourself. So join me in the course, and I'm going to give you the benefit now of that meditation. Because as you recognize that when you come from your highest self, you're going to be able to be present to the parts of you that need your attention, that need your compassion, that need you to speak for them. So speak for those parts in a way that allows you to get the ability to be present with calm, compassionate, witnessing awareness, where you're not reactive in the fight, flight, freeze level of consciousness, where you transcend that to bring more peace into the situation, to bring more acceptance, to recognize that life is not happening to you so much as for you. And even with the people that trigger you, they're going to be your angels to see where inside of you need to heal some of the parts of you that you still may be holding on to, that need to be released and need your attention and compassion. So when you think about the person with whom you are having conflict and you feel that your body is tight, what I want you to do is put your hands on your abdomen, inhale abdomen out, exhale belly button back to your spine. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. One last time. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. Good. Now just breathe. Let your breathing become normal and gently close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, imagine that your feet are growing roots to the center of the earth. And as those roots go deeper and wider, you're going to feel very firmly rooted and planted and grounded, like a tree or a mountain, so that whatever swirls around you isn't going to take you off your foundation. And you're going to bring that nurturing energy up your feet, your calves, your knees, your thighs, your hips, your groin, stomach, chest, and into and around your heart with all the feelings that you have. And then allow that nurturing energy to go up through your throat, to your jaw, behind your forehead, to the crown of your head, and then out the crown of your head, all the way to the sky. And then invite down from the sky, nature, universe, higher power, God, whatever out there. Invite down some energy that's very calm and very compassionate. And breathe even bigger than yourself. So you surround yourself with this calm, compassionate energy of self. And then focus that compassion inward. Start at the top of your head and scan your body to the soles of your feet. And just notice. Notice where you're feeling any tension or tightness. Notice all your thoughts. Notice your feelings. And as you notice these parts, let these parts notice you, supported and surrounded by this calm, compassionate energy of self. And then if you would, for just a few moments, imagine yourself going through a doorway into a beautiful scene in nature. The air is perfect, the sun is shining, and you see before you a path that you safely walk to the base of a mountain. And what you're going to do for just a few moments is to separate from your parts and go up in self as high up the mountain as you want. So invite all the parts that are nervous about the political climates, the things that are happening in the world, if they'll separate for just a few moments. Ask the parts that are triggered by someone in your life that's making you feel hurt or sad or angry or scared. Ask those parts to separate. Ask the parts that are judging that other person, that are angry and resentful and frustrated, if they'll separate. Ask the parts that are judging yourself, if they'll separate. Ask all your parts that are hurt or scared or sad or abandoned or neglected, if they'll separate too for just a few moments while you go up in self as high up the mountain as you want. And if you're feeling any feeling or thinking any thought that isn't peace, it's just a part from which you can separate for just a few moments. And wherever you decide to stop on the mountain, just rest and look at the view from up here. You may be aware of another presence, you may not, either way is fine. And if you want, you can put your thumb and forefinger together to anchor this place as a place to come back to, because in just a few moments, you're going to go back down the mountain. But before you do, in your mind's eye, picture the person with whom you're having conflict at the top of their mountain without all of their parts attached. And as much as you can, send compassion in their direction. And we're going to go back down the mountain in just a moment. But before you do, in terms of the collective universe, imagine everyone at the top of their mountain, in their higher self, in their calm, compassionate, curious, creative, connected, peaceful self. And send compassion to the lights in everyone else, because the light in you is seen and you can share that with the light in everyone else. So in just a few moments, you're going to go back down the mountain to collect your parts, even if there's a part of you that doesn't want to, because you're going to realize that once you give your own parts the attention they need to unburden the pain from the past, they carry their own wisdom and light. So taking back to your parts ever so gently, come back down the mountain, back down the path, back through the doorway, and back to your room. And just breathe. And just allow yourself to feel the peace that comes when you are in your higher self. Allow yourself to know that you have this ability to bring that peaceful witnessing presence back into your life in this moment. And even you may notice, since your energy is shifting just a little, you may notice that the person with whom you're having conflict softens a little bit, reaches out to you, because it's all energy. So change your energy, change your thoughts, change your life. I'd love to help you. So again, if you're a professional who would like to learn my process, go to lindakroll.com roadmap. If you are wanting the meditation I just gave you, go get the care kit at lindakroll.com CCC. But I really hope that many of you choose to join me in the upcoming course. It's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be live. It's going to be a small, intimate group with me. We're going to get personal as you want, in terms of really doing some healing. And that's what the world needs now more than ever. So whatever you're doing, whatever you multitask at, whatever takes you away from things that are really in your highest self-care, I invite you to just check out the course, because if you choose to join me, it's going to be a transformational experience. And we bring emotional and spiritual healing in. We bring higher self-consciousness. We bring your inner wise self, and we're going to have fun. So please check it out. Thank you so much for staying on with me. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you need to reach out to me anytime, please do. And in the meantime, I'm sending you a lot of love. And the light in me, this is my namaste heart. Here we go. Whoops. Here we go. The light in me sees and appreciates the light in you. You're here listening because you want to learn. You know what I'm talking about. You may need some tools to help yourself, and certainly you can use these tools to help your client. But the light in me sees and appreciates the light in you. The world needs as much light as we can bring. So shine your light. Let me help you. And thank you so much for staying tuned. I hope we can meet in person, and I look forward to staying connected. Bye for now. Bye-bye.